Welcome to Late Nights with the Booze. We're your hosts, Jeff
Leia,
and this is
the
the
Booze
Booze
Podcast.
Podcast.
Welcome to Late Nights with the Booze. For tonight's episode, we will be talking about the realities of being an OFW, or also known as overseas Filipino worker. So, we were OFWs since 2017,
Yeah, we started.
right?
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
2017, and I guess up to now, right? We stayed or we lived in the UAE for 7 years,
Yeah.
to be exact. Mm-hmm.
Was
Tama?
it exact?
Yeah, 7 years. So,
February. Yeah.
yeah. So, first, I think we have four subtopics or questions that we both will answer. So, first would be, what were the challenges, or what are the challenges in finding a job when you're overseas? Because you won't expect, like, if you were a manager in the Philippines,
It's
it
always, yeah.
yeah, it does not necessarily follow that when you work abroad
You'll be a manager.
you'll be a manager. So you always have to start in the bottom.
So it's more of like,
Well, at least
uh,
for in our
you have to
experience.
start somewhere. And I think, if it's a challenge of finding a job, you will always look for the closest where you'll be hired. So entry level would be your best option. And
Mm-hmm.
these are the types of jobs that may be paid lower than
Yes.
where you were sa Pinas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But before um taking on or taking on a job offer, you have to do your research. Like in Dubai, if you're in Dubai, how much would be an acceptable starting salary for you to say yes to the job offer, for you to say that it's worth it, 'di ba?
I think uh, there are two types of people who will tell you the best choice that you'll have when you're there.
Mm-hmm.
One, may na sila nga go for a survival job.
Exactly.
Anything, dishwasher, janitor, whatever,
Cook,
cook or
service
clerk o
crew.
service crew, anywhere basta naay sweldo. And there are only a few who would tell you na wait for the right job. If you can wait, the better. Do not just grab anything that has a salary. And that goes to the same, close to what we discussed last time na
Mm-hmm.
um uh you have to prepare yourself when you go there. Prepare na X number of months na wala kay sahod, or you can be lucky enough as what we had last time wherein natay freelance. We were
Yeah.
prepared enough na bahalag pila ka pila ka months wala tay trabaho, we still earn because it's like we're still working.
Yeah.
Like we're nomads, digital
Mm-hmm.
nomads.
Actually, we in our experience, we both had that two kinds of person.
Yeah.
Si ate, na who would say, "Oh, you apply this, you apply to this, you apply to
Basta
that,
lang may
basta
sweldo.
may sweldo." But then we have another ate who tells us that you should wait for the right job, 'di ba?
Yeah.
And in our experience when we were in Dubai, I got the job after 3 months.
And I got after 7 months.
And it took you how many interviews to get to that job?
Well, I had
Three?
three,
Three interviews.
three major ones. We also remember the time we had to go the extreme location
Yeah.
through a
In
taxi.
Rashidia.
Yeah,
That was the
Rashidia
first.
station.
That was the
That
first.
was the first, and I don't know what job that was.
I
Pero
don't know
get
too.
to anta, then I was under the impression one key thing is when you go to the job, they were looking for your resume, when in fact you sent it to them. So at some point, maybe one key item is bring at least one
At least
when
one
you go to
resume.
an interview. Bring one hard copy of your resume because they were looking for it, and I said I don't have any, so I didn't push through with the job
And I think at that
interview
time, people would print out their resumes and
and
they
drop
would
it
and drop
everywhere.
it everywhere. Because we actually have like 50 pieces, 50 copies of our resumes each, right?
Yeah, we had someone print it.
Yeah. Shout out that and Mami Lisa, thank you.
Yeah, and that
So
was like two reams of bond paper.
exactly. And then that job that you landed in Alain, you actually applied for that job, right?
I
But
was referred to.
no, I mean before you were
I
referred to, you
applied for
applied,
a
but
job
you were not
to that
shortlisted.
company. Yeah, I wasn't shortlisted. It was the closest I can get, and yeah. So I even before going to that third interview or third job, second job was more of, which is a good thing. It was IT related.
Mm-mm,
I even reached to the final interview, which
exactly.
was very happy. And I think segue lang the key learning there was that I after a couple of years I heard from
From a friend.
someone that that certain company closed down
Uh,
after a few years.
it was God's know was his protection.
Yeah, and at some point you would say na there's always a reason why I didn't get job.
Yeah.
There's always a reason why I did not get that job, and for everyone else there's always a reason why, and it
Why it
won't
was a
happen.
no?
Yeah,
Because he had greater plans for the both of
I
us.
know it's a redirection of his plan. So I
Exactly.
heard that from someone. So inaya lang on the third one, because that job was meant for me at some point. My actual interview was just like an orientation of what I'll be doing.
Which one?
The last one, which was the third,
Ah,
where
okay.
you and I spent for like
Yeah,
7 years
exactly.
working.
And I guess the difference with our experience and how we got our job in Dubai was for me, I was lucky enough. Was it lucky? Yeah, it was luck for me to
It
be
was
employed,
both.
but but the experience there was, I don't know, overwhelming, surprising, exciting.
Yeah, it's a mix, but I think part of it was, though you were thinking of it as luck, but come to think of it, you got hired, or that position was open because of COVID.
No, 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 no.
The
What?
first one.
The first one. I was referring
Ah,
to the first one. And
the first one
but
was,
but
I could say,
even
challenging.
but even if that job was challenging, um, it still paid the rent.
Just
Yeah,
enough to
just
pay the
enough to
rent.
pay the rent. So sometimes kasi you would need someone to refer you so that you would get a job, 'di ba?
I think references are very important,
Important. When
especially
you're starting.
outside the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I was um, I was a firm believer that, or I am a firm believer that in anywhere outside the Philippines, lagi yung mga Pinoy would help Pinoy.
Exactly.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not a tradition, but it's our culture that outside, even you don't know the person, but you know this is
It's
a
a Filipino.
Filipino.
Yeah.
You will smile. It's like your family.
It's
It's like
like
you're a community
it's
here.
like automatic
Yeah.
tabangan jud ka kas
Makurat
Pinoy.
na lang ka, people would welcome you, like welcome you in the city.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's where we had our own great experience in Elaine when we went to the
Mm-mm.
city.
Exactly. And to that point about the reference, the backer stuff, that first job,
Was our
there was no reference, but it ended up that I have a very close friend there who I was working with, right?
and
Na
she wasn't
naka-workmates,
there
but she wasn't there when
when
I
you
had my
got hired.
interview. Yeah. So anyway, I think what we could like suggest when you're or recommend when you
Go up,
when you
find
go abroad and find a job is to do your research. Like how much ba dapat imong salary para sige kani okay ra ni siya. Kay that time 2,000 dirhams, people would grab 2,000 dirhams the first job offer they get. But
you know,
will it sustain you for the whole month? Will
and the
it,
rent is very high.
yeah, or will it sustain you for the month and aside from sending money to your family in the Philippines? So you have to think about that. And we were just lucky enough that the jobs that we got were somehow high
Kailangan
paying.
England.
Huh? Even if it was the first one. No, kasi, di ba, katong akong first job,
Was only
the
half.
offer was just 2,600 lang dapat. But since I told him na, kumpade, 3,500, ana, sugot siya.
So the learning there is always, I wouldn't say know your worth because that's not the worth,
You
but you
have
have
to
to,
level yourself. You
yeah,
don't look
present
down on yourself.
yourself. Yeah,
Exactly. And one pod is, when you go on interviews, always dress up. Because
first impression
first
lasts
impression is really important.
for the most part. Yeah,
Yeah. Because remember you attended one interview na everyone was just wearing sneakers. You know
yeah.
that location when we went to near,
Yeshidia.
no, no, no. There was a lot
Al
of people.
Uda. Was
Mhm.
it the one in?
With Ate Nelsa, that place, she's the hiring manager was her friend, and then everyone who went there for interview was just wearing sneakers. So when you go on an interview, you have to present yourself. You have to be very presentable, like
Ay,
formal to dapat. So anyway, so muna siya. Next would be, how do you, so now you have a job, great.
challenges of
Now how do you adapt to or adjust to the new work environment? Because it's very different in the Philippines and abroad. If in the Philippines, there's politics.
it's everywhere. I
Politics is
wouldn't say
everywhere.
it. We didn't have
But
that.
I guess what I really
I think
um, appreciate when we were working abroad was people value your time. Pero not not all companies are the same. So like with my experience, the first job, um, I was working with amongst Filipinos as well and Asian, and sometimes,
was there any crab mentality that you get to see?
yes. So that time, kasi there's one thing that we forgot, the I you have to be open when you open to adapting to new work environment. So if this is how you work in the Philippines. Sometimes you have to unlearn those to be able to adapt
Or
to the
probably
new work
adjust.
environment or
Adjust
adjust.
is the best
Mm-mm.
option. Not really. There are things that you have to unlearn, but adjusting is the best approach. Like mixing both.
Mm-mm.
Um,
And sometimes pa, your own kabayan pa ang mag ano sa imo mag kanang traitor sa imo ha.
it happens to everywhere, and even
Yeah.
some wouldn't want to work somewhere na walay kabayan just because they wanted to avoid these kinds of threats,
Mm.
challenges, miscommunication, and I don't know
So to
what
make
they're
the long
thinking.
story short, I only stayed there for 5 months. And I was really like, I think my mode there was um,
Defensive,
quiet lang yun na
lay low,
lay low, just say yes and yes, and then
complain later,
complain later, and then
complain secretly,
complain.
privately,
Then just obey and be obedient. I've learned a lot, but it also cost me trauma,
mental health,
mental health. I was traumatized with that experience. Pero um, although that happened, I was still thankful because
it paid
for
our rent for 5 months.
for every challenge that I experienced, parang God was
Prepared,
always there. I felt that wala ko niya pasagdan. Because remember, first with the salary,
and then the living
it was
conditions.
weird because si boss, hindi siya masugot o inadto nga sweldo, but ni-agree siya sa kuha. And then with the living conditions, he transferred us to the elite na housing. And then I was one of the first employees na nag-live out. You know, even if inato ako na experience, pero nagapay kapalit nga ginawa ba?
Na
Because that was
siya
the first time na LDR ta. Every weekend na taga
for
kita.
a long time
And it
since it
was it
started.
was hard because I have separation anxiety every Sunday, every Monday
Yeah.
morning. So kana ba? Pero even so, na-experience na ko to.
At least you
Ang
experience na being alone
mm,
and
ang balik mo good is you were very lucky with the job that you have. And then maybe
mm,
you can share how you adapted to the new environment because
well,
yours was a different
yeah.
scenario,
And then you
completely different.
for that job in UAE, Alain, salamat kay Don, salamat kay
Francis.
Francis. uh, thanks, thank you for both of them because they were the key persons who really vouched for me
Who
to
gave
the
you a chance?
management. To the
Mm,
management, they were because the work because this is far different from working somewhere because this is the real deal because you're engaging with the locals. So that company was 99%
local.
Emirati
Yeah.
locals.
Mm-mm.
So you get to spend time, observe, talk, engage, laugh and
Be
share
friends with them.
experiences, be friends with them. So even there was a local who's half Filipino as well. So
Mm-mm.
for the most part, we spent hours and hours of talking to each other about experiences. Sa Pinas, my experiences. She would love to go back to the Philippines. Okay,
Mm-mm.
it's been a long time, and then they recently visited Philippines. But
Yeah.
yeah, to be aligned with the question, um, I think before going through all the worries of looking for a job, you also have to think of and prepare yourself na when you work, especially with locals, you have to know their culture, know how to interact, what are the limitations, especially in
Mm-hmm.
UAE. So one of the things that you mentioned during sa interview slash orientation was how are you able to engage with one female,
Mm-hmm.
two with a local female Emirati, and how would you reprimand? Because part of my job was to remind, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
put it on a lighter term, remind them that they have to do things
Mm-mm.
this way, which is aligned to the
And you also
policies.
have to consider the language barrier
The language barrier, not
because
everyone are fluent
fluent with
with
English and they
English,
could misinterpret or
correct?
misunderstand.
And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things as well is they would love if, especially for the Emiratis, they enjoy listening to foreigners who speak their language, meaning they you were interested enough
To
to
learn.
learn, or not just interested, but you made an effort to learn their language. And
Mm-mm.
same goes with the culture. So I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to know the culture through this, because for UAE Emiratis, um you would expect majority, especially the modern, the new generation, to speak the English
Yeah. Mm-mm.
language a bit better than the old ones. But I had the experience with old, I think, for all levels, from old to the
Like
mid.
there are also
Yeah,
some who won't allow you to see their faces. They would cover their
yeah.
faces.
But there's partly modernized. I was When I started in the first 2 years, I had one female who's just within the same
Same bay. Same.
office area where
Mm-hmm.
I work.
Mm-hmm.
First 2 3 years probably they cover their faces. When they eat, it's covered still.
Yeah.
But in the later part of probably my 7 years, I can see their faces.
Because they're
It's like they're
comfortable
comfortable.
na.
It's like
Mm-mm.
they treat you as family. But again, it may be depending on the family. I'm not saying this is how they are, but at some point, maybe they're comfortable enough that
Mm-mm.
they know that they're safe, because
With you.
that's one of the things that why they're covering. They
Mm-mm.
don't know you, so
They don't want to be
yeah,
seen.
I don't want to be seen by someone,
Mm-mm.
by a stranger. So
Yeah.
some put it in that scenario. So I think the whole experience was great. I get to know a few words, responses in Arabic,
Mm-mm.
but they would love me to learn the whole language, like conversing with them, which I didn't make an effort. Not really make an effort, but I
But
didn't have the
they
time.
would always say that it's not required, but
It's lucky that it's not required for
yeah.
that company,
Mm-mm.
because, like, if you're in hospitality
Yeah.
or other
Even like
industries,
the hospitals, they require you to speak
at least
at least
converse.
converse in dialect
Yeah,
because you're um engaging with
locals,
locals.
and
Yeah.
some of the locals are old
And
and don't understand English
English,
that
correct.
well.
Mm-mm. And I had the opportunity to work with the same company. And what I love about working with them was how
Warm.
generous they are.
They are
They're so
generous.
generous,
Oh, I got
especially
my own AirPods back
yeah,
then.
especially when I gave birth. Uh, Gifts were
Oh yeah,
flowing. We were able to buy her
a
baby's
lot.
crib,
Oh yeah,
and then stroller, clothes.
yeah. And it's not just a simple like clothes you get to buy. It's
Yeah.
like some of them are pre-ordered. It's like they're treating you as a local.
Hmm.
So I think
And
that's
they're happy when you try out their food because one thing I love about that job was every Friday we would have snacks.
snacks. Any type of snacks they
And
want.
that's the perfect time to get to try their local cuisine,
Yeah.
which was it
A
was a
lot.
great experience. Every time we have our general assembly or the award ceremony, and then we were all in one room, and when we're the only 2 to 3 Filipinos working there, I feel so proud and grateful and happy that I get to experience working with the locals. And
That's nice.
yeah, no.
And even until now, if they treat you as friend or family, they will never let you go as like when you leave the company.
Mm-hmm.
Like they will always remember. I always remember people telling me to keep on, you know, keep in touch. And some would always call Johan as our baby, my baby.
Exactly.
So they own the baby now. So it's because they, aside from they know that we've been struggling, they know the story.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think there are also some locals who might be on the same boat as we do. Like some, even a good thing with them, it's IVF is free for
Mm-hmm.
the locals for the first few tries, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's covered by their insurance and government. But
Yeah.
to that point, it was something that they treat Johan as part of their family. Just Johan, not us. No, but I
Yeah.
think when Johan came into the picture, they treat him as their own child.
Mm,
So
yeah,
my
that's true.
baby, our baby.
Even our
So
OB, they would say, "It's my baby," right?
yeah, so
Anyway, so yeah, that was a great experience for us, and I was lucky enough to be part of that
work the same.
company. I always tell Jeff when we transferred to Alain that if ever I'm going to work again,
He'll work
I'm
there.
going to work in that company.
And I think
And a few
it's
years later, I was
yeah. So
there.
this is the company that I mentioned earlier that it may be good for us, but it happened during COVID. It's like the position was open because of COVID, but
Yeah.
we don't control that, so it is what it is.
Yeah. So our next question would be how, now that we have jobs, good paying jobs, how do we manage our finances?
And that's hard. For me, it's easy. Have you managed it?
Yeah, before. Yeah, yes.
No, I think
Actually,
it's not just working overseas. It may be applied to even locally in the Philippines, but
mm-hmm,
the key item for overseas is that you're not at home. You're not in your home country. So if you don't have any source or any income at that point or
you would really try to
anything that
save
come
as
in,
much
you will have to find ways
to budget.
to budget. Because if you're in home country, you can just go to your mother, go to your
Yeah.
relatives
But
who are
I
very
think
close.
um, with our experience there, the first 2 years, yes, you will not be able to save because there are a lot of sale left and right, and you would really be tempted to buy. But after 2 years, you know when is the best time to dig into that sale because every month they have a sale, right? So you would know that every December, that's the
The biggest
time,
sale.
that's the biggest sale, that's the best time to buy. So, and you also learn that when you crave food, Filipino food, you learn how to cook. That's how we learn how to cook, right? Because we don't want to spend that much.
Yeah.
So we learn to cook our favorite food.
Whatever we want, we try to look for the best
Mm-hmm.
recipe that we can implement or
Yeah,
try out. And whichever works for us, we'll follow that.
yeah.
So I think anywhere, even right now,
That's what we
that's
do.
what we do. It's
We
one way
don't
to
eat
save.
out that much unless if
Aside from,
it's an anniversary or a celebration. But
yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things that you can do to save up, not spend too much.
So I think that answers the questions.
Mm-hmm.
How can individuals effectively manage the
Mm-hmm.
finances? I think there are times that your income might really
Right.
not really, yeah, you're on a tight budget. But I think, but I also heard from some that like, uh, Pansit Canton, itlog na lang. So, I think if it's UAE,
There's no tax.
there's no tax, or
Healthcare is free.
there are a lot
Medicines
of
are
things.
free.
I mean, there are a lot of positive things with UAE. There's a lot
Mm.
of positive things in Canada. Either way, the best course of action is really to plan things out,
To budget
budget
monthly.
monthly, as much as possible, spend
To
within your means.
mhm. I was about to say that. And to allocate savings like their expenses. That they're part of your expenses.
One major difference that I see is that in UAE, the salary is not, I would say, is not controlled a bit. So you can have a salary of X dirhams, but that won't make you survive for the month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say my salary is just 1.5, my rent is 900, I only have 600 left. I have to send 300 to the Philippines. I'm left with 300 for my monthly cost, which
That
is
won't be
not
enough.
enough.
Exactly. That's why
And
it's
you have
important.
phone bills,
Yeah.
internet, and all of that,
That's why
utilities,
that's why it's important that you research what
and the best
what's the best salary
you
to
can.
accept
But you know,
before you accept a
it's,
job offer.
if you're after survival, people would not be just,
Yeah,
would have to lower their standards just to get a job.
that's true.
So
That's true as well.
compared here in Canada, it may be different at some point, but they have follow a
They have
basic minimum salary
salary.
for a province.
Mm-mm.
At
That's,
some point, it's close. I would say might be close to um your living expense,
mm-mm.
but that should include savings. I mean, you have to consider yourself on a tight budget because rent is high,
Mm-mm.
things are getting, the cost of living increases from time to time.
Yeah. Now up to our last question. How did we cope up with homesickness? Especially that in the UAE we cannot do video calls. It's banned, right?
There are some, people would say VPN.
Mm-mm.
There's some like WhatsApp. There were applications back then
There are
that
applications
were
back then that,
open
that would allow
for.
us to video call our family,
Yeah,
but
I mean, bottom line is, with technology right now, it's easier compared than before.
mm,
Can still remember before si Papa, when he's traveling and where it's our birthday,
mm,
they send this telegram,
yeah,
PTNT, happy birthday, Jeff, something like that. So it's more of the 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 engagement wherein that's the closest they can reach out to you.
mm,
Compared right now, you have video calls,
Facebook,
SMS, Facebook, and all of that.
Messenger,
It's more of
Zoom,
technology. So
Google Hangout.
homesickness wouldn't be that difficult. I think the best person to answer is you, because mm, you haven't experienced leaving your family
For a long
for a
time.
long time.
Singapore was the first.
Yeah, and for me, I had an experience of spending a year in Manila, and they were
Mm,
all in Cagayan de Oro. So
yeah, that's so true. It's hard at first, but I guess like what you've mentioned in the previous podcast that a previous episode that what helped with the homesickness is because we went there together.
that's one.
So
We're lucky enough to go together,
yeah, we were lucky enough that we had the capacity and capability to go at the same time, to go abroad at the same time.
and same goes with Canada,
Yeah,
with you.
yeah, exactly. I think that's it. No, I
Did
don't
we
have it.
cover all?
I think we've covered everything for this episode.
Yeah, we
Um,
went on overtime.
yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
You know, we hope that you were able to picture out the experiences we had and learn
Mhm.
something if you plan on going abroad anytime soon.
Yeah, and see you on our next episode with Late Nights
Nights
with
with
the
Abu.
Booze.